Most productivity hacks are making you poor. In the quest for trying to build wealth, we try these weird productivity hacks because we see other rich people doing them. I was no exception. I used to eat raw liver. I spent $1,000 on an ice bath as a broke uni student. I would wear weird shoes, and I even bought a sauna. I did everything I was told would make me more productive, but I was still poor and out of shape. After removing 90% of these productivity hacks, I was able to take my business from 0 to 10K a month in 90 days, run 13 marathons in 13 months while adding 17 pounds in the gym, become conversationally fluent in Spanish in 7 months, and travel the world while I continue to grow my business and my side quests. I think one of the biggest factors that I had when it came to productivity, and that a lot of people have, is we don't take into consideration the most important factor, and that is time. See, we look at productivity as a yes or a no. You're productive or you're unproductive. But this does not take into consideration time here. See, productivity is really a spectrum. It is how good of a return can I possibly get on my time. And when you start looking at productivity like this, you start looking at tasks that you were doing, like eating the raw liver or like going and sitting in a sauna for an hour, and you go, technically, this is productive, but this is not giving me a really strong return on my time. And if we can try and stack up as many behaviors that sit right on the end of this spectrum here on the best possible returns on our time, this is really where you can say, okay, I am actually being productive. Especially when we're in these periods of high motivation, you might notice that you start earning a little bit more, you start doing a little bit better. But these periods of high motivation, you're also just doing a lot of productive activities, and you're associating doing productive activities with earning more. And when this plate gets massive and you give up, you associate having to do a gigantic amount of tasks with earning money. And you really think, well, earning a lot of money, this is too hard. I don't want to do this. When I was at my most productive, doing the most amount of productivity tasks, I'd be waking up at something like 5 in the morning. I'd be jumping into an ice bath, then getting out and then spending an hour in the sauna, and then having this really healthy breakfast, and then going and working out. And it would get to about midday, and I hadn't done anything to push my business forward. There was really nothing productive about these behaviors when it came to building wealth, but I just associated doing productive actions with progressing forward and building my business. The problem is that when you wake up and it's 5 o'clock in the morning, it's pitch black, middle of winter, the idea of you going out and doing an ice bath becomes incredibly daunting and overwhelming, and you go, well, I don't really want to do this. And as soon as you stop doing that, you go, well, I guess now I'm not being productive, and now I shouldn't do any of these actions, and it just brings everything down with it. And I think this is one of the really big problems with trying to add in a bunch of productivity hacks, is that it really dilutes the value of the ones that genuinely matter. See, if you are doing hundreds of different things, there might be 3 or 4 that are extremely effective, but you don't realize they're extremely effective because they're surrounded with a bunch of other tasks that you also think are productive. There's only one productivity hack that I've done that I've thought, wow, this is actually insane and this is actually worth doing. And it's not even something that you can add. The productivity hack is subtraction. It is how much can I remove from my life so I can only focus on the few things that actually matter. This is the opposite of what everyone does when they go to become more productive. What everyone does is they start adding and adding and adding and adding and adding, and their day becomes full of not doing the thing. Subtraction is the complete opposite. It's taking every single little thing off your plate, every single rock to hide behind, so you're just standing there and you're just facing what you actually have to do. Now, at the end of 2024, around December of 2024, I thought, how can I really take this to the extreme? So at this point, I decided, okay, I'm gonna remove all forms of online entertainment by myself, and I'm just gonna do this indefinitely. Now, it's been 500 days, over 500 days now, and I've still kept with this. And what this has done has just been completely insane. When I first started doing this, what I noticed was, okay, I just have a crazy amount of time back. Simply not allocating my time, my most valuable resource, to the lowest ROI activities possible, I have to just by default use them slightly better. And what I noticed is, if I don't have anything else to do, then all I'm left with is me and the work. And at the time for me, the work was just working on my online business. This was the only thing that I had. This was literally the only thing in my life. And as a consequence, I just focused on that. And that was really, really good. And it lasted me a few weeks, really. And then I thought, okay, I need to do something else. So I thought, okay, what else can I add? And this is where I brought in running. I thought, okay, why did I start running? I've never really ran properly before, but this might be a cool thing to add. And because I was really adding running with work on top of nothing else, I could just focus on these two things. And I slowly started progressing my running as I was working. And I got to the point where I'd run my first ever marathon. It took me about 6 weeks to go from a 2-month injury to running a marathon. And then I just ran a marathon every month from that point up until now. So it's been about 13 marathons. But along the way, I thought, okay, well, my life right now is subtracted from basically everything except for doing the work and running and a little bit of weightlifting. So I thought, okay, what else can I add here? And I thought, okay, why didn't I learn a language? Why didn't I actually decide to go out and acquire a new skill? So I spent 4 hours every single day for 7 months learning Spanish. And you might look at that and think, well, 4 hours a day, that is an insane amount of time. How did you have the time to do that? The crazy thing was that I was doing that on top of working about 8 hours a day and working out every day. So you might think, well, how is that even physically possible? You must have not been sleeping. No, I was sleeping probably 9-10 hours a night in bed. It was just that there was nothing else. I think a lot of people, when they say, I've done nothing today, they haven't done nothing. You're still doing actions. You're still doing behaviors. They're just not necessarily behaviors that progress you forwards, that move you towards your goals. So you'd rather not talk about them. But we spend our time in one way or the other. I was simply only spending my time on the 3 or 4 goals that I had. My time was literally not going anywhere else. And this subtraction was really, really powerful. This took me up until about March of 2026. And at this point I thought, damn, this productivity hack is actually working pretty well. I had almost reached conversational fluency. I'd nearly hit 1,000 hours of Spanish content. I'd run about 8 marathons from a beginner runner. That was pretty good. And I was in pretty good shape. So I thought, okay, side quests going really well. But I looked at my business and at my brands and I thought, this is tough. I was spending 8 hours a day doing this and the returns were not particularly good. I hadn't made a single dollar online after spending a year working 8 hours a day. And in terms of my brand, I had about 300 subscribers on YouTube. So I thought, okay, what did I do for the side quests? What did I do for these other things? And how can I bring this into my business to grow a little bit quicker? And I thought about just my life in general over that period. And I realized it was subtraction. Subtraction is what had gave me all of this really quick progress. But when I looked at my business, there was zero subtraction whatsoever. I was trying to do everything. I was doing everything poorly. I had no clear focus on the few inputs that would progress me really quickly. And as a consequence, I spent all this time at the desk, but did absolutely nothing. So I stripped everything back and I subtracted. I didn't just subtract the amount of tasks I did. I subtracted the amount of time I spent at the desk. I gave myself a cap. I went, okay, you have 4.5 hours a day to spend at the desk. So you have to use this time as effectively as possible. So in this time, I really had to pull back everything that was not giving me really strong returns on my time. So I was just left with 3 to 4 core inputs, core functions of the business. And I just focused on these 4.5 hours a day. That was it. And I started actually progressing very quickly. Within 90 days, I'd gone from zero to $10,000 a month in profit. And I thought, $10,000 a month in profit, this was so foreign to me because throughout this entire period, I had been earning $0. And I thought it was just a matter of fact that it just takes forever to grow. But the reality was that if I just focused on the few little inputs that actually progressed me quickly and forgot about everything else, like I was doing in every other area of my life, bear in mind, I progressed quickly. It was really no surprise to me. But when I thought back about the fundamental principle of all of this, it really came from subtraction and not addition. When I looked at the period of my life where I was making no progress but felt like I was productive all the time, this was a period of addition, just adding and adding and adding and adding and nothing moving forward. This period of subtraction, the more I subtracted, the more I got rid of, the faster I progressed. So every time I'm looking at what can I remove, not what can I add. I think if you want an action step to take away from this video, have a look at what you're doing right now and have a look at what is your goal. What is your North Star? What are you moving towards right now? And then look at what are my side quests? What are the 1 or 2 other things I'm trying to accomplish in my life? Then look at everything else and think, can I remove it? Because the more you can subtract, the more you can remove, the more time you accumulate, which is your most valuable resource that you can then reinvest back into your goals. And if you have more time, you can water more of these plants, you can progress these a lot quicker. Now, if you want to take this a step further, the next thing I would do is look inside of this plant. Look inside of this goal and think, of all of the actions that I'm doing inside of this goal, what can I get rid of? So I'm just left with a few core actions. And really, the more you can subtract, the deeper you can go and subtract again, the better returns you're going to get on your time. And if we go all the way back to the start of the video, and I talked about this spectrum of productivity, this is how you can live up here, up on the end, where you're just getting the best returns on your time possible. And this is what we're doing, is just constantly looking at what we're doing and thinking, how can I remove as much as possible? Subtraction was really the greatest productivity hack that I ever discovered. I don't think anything comes anywhere near this. So if you're a high ticket consultant or agency owner and you're trying to scale your business faster, spending less time at the desk, you can join the Modern Monk community for free. One of the first things we do is get very clear and specific about what is your North Star, what is your goal, and then figure out what are your inputs. What are the small set of actions that you can do to progress yourself as quickly as possible towards the goal. This is really the process of subtraction and identifying what the goal is. So I'll leave a link in the description below for that. For everyone else, YouTube thinks that based on the information that you need right now, this is going to be the best video for you. This is going to be different for every single person. But if I don't see you in the Modern Monk community, I will see you in this video. Cheers.